Hey everyone, happy Sunday. I hope everyone's having a good weekend. I've had a good morning. I'm like tired as fuck, but I'm like so full of joy. I woke up, I took Jack for a walk, and of course everyone, like all my new neighbors came out and they're like, oh my god, a cat on a leash, and he was like loving the attention until people's like dogs started coming out to want to like mess with him too. But I brought him home, and as I was getting ready this morning, I did something I haven't done in a really long time, and it's something I did when I was in my 20s. I had a dance party as I was getting ready. It's like I got out of the shower, I was air drying, and I turned on Beyonce, and I was like, anyone who knows me knows that I have absolute trash taste in music. I'm not saying anything bad about Beyonce, but like I'm just like a pop girl, and I'm a child of like the late 90s, so like any kind of southern like rap, R&B, it's like I'm pretty much stuck in my college years. And anyone I listen to now is like, if I listen to anyone's album, it's gonna be Taylor Swift's, and that's just like who the fuck I am, okay? But one of Beyonce's songs came on as I was like, dragging Jack around the dance floor, and it was the one called Flawless, and there is this amazing interstitial in it that when I heard it the first time I got goosebumps, because there's this woman with a British accent, speaking about how as women we are taught to become small, to remain small, to not be seen, and if we are being competitive, it's to be competitive with each other for a man or a partner, which is just beyond insane to me. But not competitive in the way that it's like, it's good, it's positive, that it's like for work or for jobs or careers or whatever it is. It's like, where we can't have a healthy competition that has no personal gain in it. And it really struck me because it made me think back to one of my core narratives, which is I've been told since I was a very young girl that I am too much. And that narratives has evolved since. It's evolved to being I'm too much, I'm too tall, too curvy, too political, too outspoken. It's like no one's gonna want all of that, and that's what I've been told repeatedly, growing up. And I'm not saying by my parents, not specifically that. There are narratives that every parental figure projects onto their kids, but mine was more tied to the teachers that taught me when I was a kid. And I was raised in Catholic school, and the first 7 years of my life were all, Catholic nuns, and very sheltered. And it's so interesting because now when I look at the Catholic Church, it's like, and I think any church, women are not paid. They're given a stipend, and then any masculines in the church are making bank, which is just another trickle down of patriarchy, right? And last night I was reading about Taylor Swift and her concert in the UK, and I saw that she had, taken pictures, of course, with the royalty there, which that's a whole other construct I'm not even gonna get into because it's such bullshit. The fact that there's a royal family, come on. But I didn't realize that she has this chant, and it's like, fuck the patriarchy. And she's so powerful, and it's such a powerful sentiment. And she's someone who's so polarized, in the media, that I love the fact that she does that. It's really amazing. And I think as feminines, we are evolving and realizing that, yeah, like fuck the patriarchy, and we're no longer going to put ourselves into a box. And so my point being, when I was listening to that interstitial in Beyonce's song Flawless and dancing around this morning, I realized, I think I healed a wound that I didn't realize existed or still existed. Just that I remember from the formative age of being in second grade, I had this one nun tell me that, my hands and my nails were disgusting because I had like long nails. And I was like looking at my nails this morning, and I was like, ugh, like they're getting long. And I like had this flashback to second grade where this nun told me that if I let my nails grow, there are gonna be worms that crawled underneath them. And it's just so weird. Anyway, but it was like, cut your nails, be lesser. And I remember, we used to have to sit like boys on one side during lunch and girls on the other. And I remember in grade school that the girls used to gossip a lot, and gossip always makes me uncomfortable even to this day, unless it's with my own friends. I'm joking, but kind of not. But it's more of like, I don't like toxic gossip, with people, if you're like commenting on something that's different. But I remember not wanting to sit with the girls because they were all in a fight and they were all gossiping about each other. So I went and I sat up with the boys because like they're just happy to sit there eating their lunch. And I never forget, a nun like called me up and she called me Mary Magdalene in front of everyone. And in my head during that time, I think I was in 5th grade, and I was like, oh, I'm like, that's actually kind of a cool compliment. You know, I was totally thinking she was a sex worker at the time, and I'm like, well, I'd rather be that than Mary. But it was more of just like, I was constantly shamed for just being who I am growing up. And I wanted to do a reading just about anyone who feels like they're too much. And I think that sometimes it's like, you know how as women, you know, we as feminines, we grow up saying that we need to make room, like hearing that we need to make room for other people and not take up space and be comfortable with taking up space. And I think that's what I want my reading to be about today, is if you are uncomfortable in taking up space in your life, in your career, in your family, in your friend structure, whatever it is, if you have this fear of being too much or you have a narrative of being too much, we're going to talk about it. And I was going to do runes today, but I'd rather stick with my Rider-Waite deck. It was off Rider-Waite, but my tarot deck, because it's more of, it's more of a narrative than the energy to take around it. This is cool. So 8 of Wands for me, whenever I look at this card, it's like running away from something. I think that a lot of times when we have narratives told to us about ourselves, whatever that may be, we have a tendency to either like run away from it, or actually we have a tendency to run away from it first before we actually embrace it. And so that narrative will chase us down and chase us down and chase us down until it's time for us to be like, oh, you know what? I need to turn around, like the little roadrunner here. I need to turn around. I need to face what I feel like is coming after me. What I feel like, I need to challenge this narrative of like, is it true? Am I too much? And if I am, who gives a fuck, right? But you have to first look at that narrative and stare it in the face. And that's something that I feel pretty strongly about. Like that was actually, like I love the fact that I take up space, and I love the fact that I can walk into a room and command it. And it's not because I'm like dominant, it's just because I'm comfortable with my energy. And if people think I'm too much, then I'm not their cup of tea, and that is totally good. Because also, like, I think that sometimes when people are hypercritical of each other in the way that the nuns were with me or anyone else was with me growing up, I think that that was a call to look at themselves, and maybe they were uncomfortable with how they showed up in the world, and that had nothing to do with me. But maybe I represented something that made them feel insecure. Now, I guess we're pulling wands today. Your challenge today, I'm going to read these like runes actually. Your challenge today is 5 of Wands, which is, okay, so like, you know how I was saying, you're like in the original position, it's like, don't run away from the narrative, confront it. This is what it looks like to confront the narrative of you being too much. And it's time to like, to tackle that narrative, right? Like stare it in the face, stare it down, and say, yeah, motherfucker, I am too much, and I'm gonna take up space, and this is who I am, and fucking deal with it. And I'm not saying this to allow toxic behavior, because like if you don't respect people's boundaries and you overstep things and you trample people in your attempt to find your own space, that's not okay either. I'm not saying that's the solution. It's on you as a grown adult with a fully developed frontal lobe to figure that out. But that said, your challenge is to confront it head on. And I love that, because these are kind of a narrative that follows each other. And then confronting that narrative of what you're afraid of, which is, taking up space, being too much. Ooh! Oh, this is good. The patriarchy. Whenever I pull the Hierophant, it represents the old school way of thinking, patriarchy, constructs that have been created by society and not by ourselves, but it's like the old school way of doing things. You will face the very genesis, the very beginning of the machine that created the narrative. And this is the one thing I love about this card too, is that these had these 2 keys here. With staring this construct down straight to the face, at the end of the day, I know that like the nuns who spoke to me, my friends, or any people who spoke to me, telling me, parents of my friends growing up, actually thinking about that, who like confronted me about being too much, or taking up too much space, or asking too many questions. I had to, as an adult, realize it wasn't about them, it was how they were raised, it was their own shame behavior. But when you stare this down and you look up at this patriarchal construct, you're going to realize that there are keys here that it also, like, in facing the challenge head on, you're going to be facing the solution as well. There is a reason why all of these blockages were placed in front of us as feminines, historically, to allow another gender to come forward, and to take power when they really didn't really hold any. And that's a whole other conversation from the get-go. But I will say this, is that narratives were placed in front of us to control us, right? And it's not until we stop running away from it and embrace it, face it head on and be like, what do you really mean by saying that I'm too much? And realizing it goes beyond the person, it goes to the construct of what they've been taught as well, that you have to stare the construct in the face and challenge it and say, you know what, I'm not too much. I love who I am. I embrace who I am. Fucking deal with it. But then looking into that construct as well and realizing that this also holds the key to you figuring out who you are, if that makes sense. I hope it does, because I know I'm kind of like going a little bit abstract here. But I think that is the answer for today. And in bringing up the memories that I have, it's like I'm not reliving them. And I know I talk about the church a lot, but it really is, a wound that I carry and I actively process to heal. But it's more so about, it goes beyond that. And so for me, listening to empowering women speak empowering words about how we've been held back, speaking empowering words to my clients every day and my friends every day, raising other feminines up is the key that I use to move beyond this construct. And I want you to think about this today, in which ways, maybe even an automatic write around it, what are some ways that you could do the same? Because really in facing the narrative of you being too much or you taking up too much space as a feminine, write a little bit about it, and how can you combat that narrative specifically by raising other feminines up. So have an amazing weekend, and thanks for listening to my little TED Talk. Take care.